Welcome to my channel. What if I told you that the biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you want isn't your circumstances, isn't your luck, isn't even other people, but a handful of quiet, invisible habits hiding inside your own daily thinking? Today, we're exposing 7 signs of a foolish person. And I want to be clear before we begin, this is not about judging anyone. It is not about calling people foolish. It is about understanding certain habits and behaviors that can quietly destroy success, relationships, happiness, and personal growth without you even realizing it's happening. The truth is that every single person has acted foolishly at some point in life. Every person has made mistakes. Every person has ignored good advice. Every person has allowed emotions to control their decisions. And the difference that truly matters is simple. Wise people learn from these mistakes, while foolish people repeat them endlessly. That is exactly why this topic matters so much, because if you can recognize these signs, you can avoid them. And if you can avoid them, you can make better decisions. And if you can make better decisions, you can build a genuinely better life. Sometimes a single bad habit can keep a person stuck for years without them ever understanding why. And sometimes one small shift in thinking can completely transform a person's entire future. So I encourage you to watch this until the very end, because each sign carries an important life lesson, and you may discover something today that changes the way you see yourself, your goals, and your future from this point forward. And while you're here, this video will also help sharpen your English. So as you listen, pay close attention to the vocabulary, the sentence patterns, and the natural expressions, and try to think in English while you listen, because the more you listen, the stronger your English becomes. The first sign of a foolish person is simple but powerful. They never truly listen to others. So many people believe communication is about speaking, but wise people understand something different, that listening is often far more important than talking. A foolish person usually believes they already know enough, and because of this belief, they quietly stop listening altogether. When someone offers advice, they ignore it. When someone shares hard-earned experience, they ignore it. When someone genuinely tries to help them, they ignore that too. And as a result, they miss valuable lessons that were freely available to them. Think about it honestly for a moment. Every single person you meet knows something you do not know. Every person carries different experiences, different knowledge, different perspectives, and when you listen carefully, you gain access to all of that wisdom. You can learn from other people's successes. You can learn from other people's mistakes. You can gain real wisdom without having to suffer through every problem yourself. But a foolish person slams that door shut, assuming they already hold all the answers. And this mindset is dangerous because the moment you stop listening, you stop learning completely. Picture a young employee starting a brand new job. An experienced coworker offers advice built from years of hard lessons, but the young employee waves it off, thinking, I already know what I'm doing. Months later, they make the exact mistakes that could have been avoided entirely, simply because they ignored wisdom that was sitting right in front of them. This same pattern repeats everywhere. People ignore financial advice and then struggle with money. People ignore health advice and then face preventable problems. People ignore relationship advice and then wonder why their relationships keep falling apart. And the painful truth is that the help was never unavailable. They simply refuse to listen to it. Listening also matters because it helps you truly understand people. And so many conflicts happen because people listen only to reply, not to understand. They interrupt, they assume, they judge far too quickly, and misunderstandings grow as a result. Relationships suffer, and opportunities quietly disappear. Wise people listen with genuine curiosity instead. They ask questions. They seek real understanding. They stay open-minded, and this does not mean they agree with everything they hear. It simply means they remain willing to learn from it. One of the most powerful qualities you could ever develop is humility. And humility simply means understanding that you do not know everything and that this is perfectly okay. In fact, admitting that you don't know everything is itself a sign of real wisdom. Because the smartest people in the world never stop learning. They keep asking questions, they keep listening, because they understand that knowledge has no finish line at all. Think about the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and teachers you admire. Many of them are exceptional listeners, listening closely to customers, employees, mentors, and feedback. And this single ability is what helps them grow continuously. A foolish person does the exact opposite, rejecting feedback, rejecting advice, rejecting different opinions. And over time, this creates dangerous blind spots, and those blind spots quietly create costly mistakes. The truth is refreshingly simple. Listening does not make you weak. Listening makes you stronger. Listening does not make you less intelligent. Listening makes you more intelligent. Listening does not reduce your value. Listening increases your understanding. And the person who listens learns. The person who learns grows. And the person who grows builds a better future for themselves. So make it a personal goal to listen more than you speak. And when someone is talking, resist the urge to immediately think about your response. Focus instead on truly understanding them. Ask questions, stay curious, stay open minded, and remind yourself that every single person has something valuable to teach you, even if that lesson is simply what not to do. A foolish person believes they already know everything, while a wise person knows there is always more to learn. And the first step toward learning is always listening. This brings us to the second sign of a foolish person, believing that they already know everything. And while this habit may not seem dangerous at first glance, it can quietly stop a person from growing, learning, and improving for years without them noticing. Think about it honestly. If you believe you already know everything, why would you ever learn anything new? Why would you ask questions? Why would you listen to advice? Why would you bother improving yourself at all? The moment a person believes they have nothing left to learn, their growth quietly begins slowing down, and in many cases, it stops completely. Wise people understand something essential here. No matter how much knowledge they already have, there is always more to learn, always another lesson, another skill, another perspective, another experience waiting for them. And this is exactly why truly intelligent people tend to be humble, because they know just how much they still don't know. A foolish person behaves very differently, constantly trying to prove they are right, refusing to admit mistakes, rejecting feedback, becoming defensive the moment someone disagrees with them, and instead of learning, they pour all their energy into protecting their ego, and that ego slowly becomes a prison around them. Picture a glass that is already completely full of water. If you try pouring something new into it, nothing can enter. And knowledge works in exactly the same way. Because if your mind is already closed, new ideas simply cannot get in. Growth cannot happen, learning cannot happen, and success becomes far harder to reach. Think about two people learning English side by side. One says, I already know enough English, and stops studying, stops practicing, stops improving entirely, while the other says, there is still more to learn, and keeps reading, keeps listening, keeps speaking, keeps growing every single day. And after a few years, the gap between them becomes enormous, not because one person was naturally smarter, but simply because one of them remained teachable while the other did not. This exact lesson applies to every corner of life: business, health, relationships, money, communication, and personal development. Because the people who keep improving are almost always the people who keep learning, and the people who keep learning are almost always the people humble enough to admit they don't know everything yet. Thinking you already know everything also creates dangerous arrogance, the kind that makes people walk straight past valuable opportunities without even noticing them. Imagine someone receiving advice from a genuinely successful mentor, but instead of truly listening, they think, I already know that, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But because of that attitude alone, they never really listen. And because they never really listen, they miss insights that could have changed everything for them. And this happens far more often than most people realize, because so many opportunities are lost, not because knowledge was unavailable, but simply because someone was unwilling to learn from it. One of the greatest strengths a person can ever develop is intellectual humility, which simply means being confident enough to admit when you're wrong, confident enough to say, I don't know. Can you teach me? Can you explain that? What can I learn from this? And these simple questions quietly open doors, doors to knowledge, doors to growth, doors to real wisdom. The truth is that nobody on this earth knows everything. Not teachers, not business leaders, not scientists, not billionaires, not anyone at all. Every person is still learning, every person still makes mistakes, every person still has room left to grow, and that is exactly what makes life so endlessly interesting, because there is always another lesson waiting to be discovered just around the corner. Remember this truth always: the more you learn, the more you realize just how much there still is to learn. And that realization is never weakness, it is wisdom in its purest form. So develop the habit of curiosity, ask questions regularly, be willing to admit. When you don't know something, listen to people with different experiences than your own. Read books, learn new skills, seek honest feedback, and most importantly, never let your ego become more important than your growth, because the moment you stop learning, you stop improving entirely. This brings us to the third sign: repeating the same mistakes again and again. A foolish person doesn't simply make mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes. Mistakes are part of life, part of learning, part of growth itself. But a foolish person keeps repeating identical mistakes over and over without ever learning from them, and that repetition is the real problem hiding underneath it all. Making a mistake once can become a valuable lesson, but making that same mistake again and again slowly becomes a habit, and when mistakes turn into habits, they can quietly destroy a person's entire future without warning. Think about a student who fails an exam. Failing once doesn't make someone foolish. Maybe they didn't understand the material, maybe they didn't prepare properly, maybe nerves got in the way. But if that student learns nothing, changes nothing, and studies the exact same way again, the exact same result will likely happen again, because the real mistake wasn't only failing, it was refusing to learn from that failure in the first place. This pattern shows up everywhere in life. Some people keep wasting money and then wonder why they're always broke. Some people keep trusting the wrong people and then wonder why they always end up hurt. Some people keep wasting time and then wonder why their goals never arrive. Some people keep speaking without thinking and then wonder why their relationships keep suffering. And some people keep avoiding practice and then wonder why their English never improves. And the pattern is always identical. They want a completely new result while repeating the exact same old behavior. And that isn't wisdom at all. That is quiet self destruction in disguise. A wise person thinks very differently. When they make a mistake, they pause, they reflect, they genuinely ask themselves, what went wrong here? What can I learn from this? What should I do differently next time? How can I prevent this from happening again? And these simple questions are powerful because they transform mistakes into teachers instead of enemies. A mistake only becomes truly dangerous when you ignore it completely, but when you learn from it instead, it quietly transforms into real experience, and experience eventually creates wisdom, and wisdom creates far better decisions down the road. Imagine touching something hot for the very first time. You get hurt, and after that, you learn quickly, you become careful, you simply don't touch it again. And that is exactly how learning is supposed to work. Yet, some people keep touching the same fire repeatedly and then complain that life keeps burning them, when really, the problem was never just the fire itself. The deeper problem was always the refusal to change. So many people say they want success, yet refuse to change their habits. They want better health, yet keep eating poorly and avoiding exercise entirely. They want better English, yet keep avoiding speaking practice altogether. They want better finances, yet keep spending without any discipline. And the truth here is refreshingly simple. If you genuinely want a different life, you must be willing to make different choices, because you cannot keep repeating identical actions and somehow expect a completely different future to appear. This brings us to the fourth sign, blaming others for absolutely everything that goes wrong in their life. Whenever something goes wrong, a foolish person immediately searches for someone else to blame: their parents, their friends, their boss, society itself, the economy, bad luck, blaming everyone except themselves. And while life certainly isn't always fair, and people genuinely do face difficult circumstances sometimes, foolish people turn blame into a constant habit. And that habit keeps them permanently trapped because blame quietly removes responsibility. And when responsibility disappears completely, growth disappears right alongside it. A wise person thinks completely differently when something goes wrong, asking themselves, what can I learn from this? What could I have done better here? What can I improve moving forward? And notice the fundamental difference. The foolish person looks outward for someone to blame, while the wise person looks inward for a genuine solution to apply. This brings us to the fifth sign, acting without thinking things through first. A foolish person speaks before they understand, decides before checking the facts, reacts before controlling their emotions properly, and jumps into situations without ever pausing to ask, is this truly the right choice for me? And this single habit alone can create enormous problems throughout someone's entire life, costing relationships, money, opportunities, and long term peace, all traded away for fleeting temporary feelings. There is a real difference between confidence and carelessness here. A confident person can act quickly because they genuinely understand the situation in front of them, while a careless person acts quickly simply because they don't want to take the time to think it through properly, and a wise person instead pauses, breathes, and asks themselves calmly, what result do I actually want from this response, before acting at all? This brings us to the sixth sign, refusing to learn and grow as the world keeps moving forward around them because life is constantly changing. Technology changes, skills change, opportunities change, and knowledge changes. And a person who flatly refuses to keep learning eventually gets left far behind everyone else. And finally, this brings us to the seventh and final sign, ignoring good advice when it's given freely. Life surrounds us with many teachers, parents, mentors, friends, books, experts, and lived experience itself, and these teachers consistently offer valuable lessons, yet a foolish person ignores them anyway, sometimes because their ego gets in the way, sometimes because they simply don't want to change, and sometimes because they mistakenly believe they already know better. Remember this powerful truth as we close today. A foolish person ignores wisdom and repeats avoidable mistakes endlessly, while a wise person listens, learns, and grows continuously, and the hard earned lessons of others can become genuine shortcuts to your own success if only you are willing to truly listen.